Got some breaking news. Representative Cori Bush is under federal investigation for alleged misuse of security funds. Punchbowl News reports that the DOJ has subpoenaed the House Sergeant-at-Arms for documents relating to their investigation. Now, according to the New York Times, Bush hired her romantic partner, who is now her husband, to provide her with security services. According to previous reporting by Fox News, Bush's now husband has been paid more than $100,000 from her payroll. Since January 2022, these were marked as security payments and wage expenses. So this is interesting.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So the New York Times reported that the Office of Congressional Ethics already investigated Ms. Cori Bush last year. The office voted to dismiss the allegations after concluding that her now husband, Courtney Merritt, had performed bona fide security work and did not appear to have been overpaid, and that Ms. Bush faced a level of threats that justified the work. Now it seems that the Justice Department is doing an additional investigation, and it's not clear of whether or not it's broader than the Office of Congressional Ethics investigation that already validated this expenditure, but we'll see.
Yeah, to some degree, it reminds me a little bit of the Fani Willis situation with the Georgia DA, being alleged that there could be something improper here, someone who you're in a romantic relationship with receiving funds inappropriately. Now, you raised this when we started talking about it. It seems like she might have, they've recently gotten married.
Yeah, just last year. So it's not, I don't actually know the timeline here. Did she fall in love with her security, a la the movie Bodyguard,
right,
or did she give a security job to someone she's
But as soon as you're in a romantic relationship with the person, they should not be
Although
in
I think
role.
the difference with the Fani Willis situation seems to be primarily, were you hired because you're qualified for the job? Did her husband do security, and is he now husband do security and was hired for security purposes? Versus Fani Willis, where the accusations are not just that he was hired,
sure,
but then that he paid for all of these trips and stuff that amounted to a kind of a kickback scheme. So it's worth investigating. It does seem interesting to me that apparently there was some interest in the Congressional Ethics Office looking into seeing if this was okay. And what does it mean for Cori Bush if she already basically got the go-ahead from the Congressional Ethics Office, only to have prosecutors follow up in this way?
Well, many conservatives have, and they did when this first became an issue during that probe or during that ethical look at from Congress, have pointing to a kind of hypocrisy here in their view, because she was very outspoken on the whole defund the police thing and to be paying so much money. She's actually, at the chart I'm looking at, spent more than any other member of Congress. I think that was in the New York Times report. The chart I'm looking at actually has her one of the highest, but that's from 2021. I think the New York Times said she spent more on personal security than any other representative in the last year.
Yeah, there was reporting in the New York Times at some point last year that talked about how there had been agitation for larger congressional budgets for security, in large part because of increased security threats after January 6th. Also, there was the attack on Nancy Pelosi's husband that happened last year. And going back farther, there are obviously any number of attacks that have happened on Congress members.
There's been doxings happening lately. Marjorie Taylor Greene was doxed. I think a Democrat was doxed as well. Henry Cuellar was carjacked about like a block from where I live in the city. So that was
so
good.
I would argue that the quest to defund the police has to do with the police targeting and abusing and violating the civil liberties of disproportionately poor and working class people in the United States of America. And that is a basic civil liberties argument that anyone should want to adopt, that has nothing to do with whether or not you have a credible threat against you, because they're one of the most high profile and famous people in the United States of America. And in the Congressional Ethics Office's investigation, I think it's important that one of the things that they weighed was whether or not there are in fact credible threats. If nobody's threatening you and you're spending, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in security, that obviously seems like an ethical violation. In a way, it doesn't. If you are being credibly threatened and you have real cause to have security, it's a little
well, but
bit
if you're
different.
paying it again as a kickback to your boyfriend or lover or something, that could be unethical depending on whether the funds are being appropriated for a false purpose, or it's the same thing with Fani Willis, that they were going on. This was public money that then she was herself getting back in some way because he was paying for the trips they were going on.
Yeah, so the question is, are you overpaid?
Yeah.
And were you hired because you're actually qualified to do the job? Which, again, is all of the things that the Congressional Ethics Office looked into. They found that he does do legitimate security, but the Times called it bona fide security work, that he was not overpaid, and that she did have these credible threats.
Yeah. I still think as soon as you're in a romantic relationship with your security guard, they should stop being your security guard.
I think it's a little dangerous. I don't know. There's an argument that they're more likely to protect your life. Again, Whitney Houston and Kevin Costner style. But there's also an argument that it could interfere with their ability to look out for your safety and make hard decisions for your benefit. I don't know. I think it cuts kind of both ways. It is interesting to see the chart that I found from 2021 that you just alluded to. There's some really big numbers for Raphael Warnock. He tops the list. I wonder if that's because it was an election year in such a hotly contested state, with $605,000 being spent on campaign security expenses. Ted Cruz was second with $364,000 that year. John Ossoff, again, the same congressional race as Warnock.
Cori Bush is very much an outlier in terms of being she's the highest representative on the list, and is frankly, she is known. I think she's one of the less. The other people on this list are more high profile than her for the most. I mean, maybe that's not true across the board.
No, I think it's true, because the next one is Eric Swalwell at 86. So Cori Bush spent in 2021 $233,000. Swalwell $86,500. He was the next highest rep, and then AOC is the third next highest rep at $83,200. So it's a little hard for me to imagine that AOC needs to spend less than Cori Bush, but this also might have to do with
less. It's like 4 times less.
Yeah, but also might have to do with their personal finances. Cori Bush was famous for having come into Congress after having been sleeping in her car. She talked a lot about how when she first joined, she struggled to get housing in D.C. and in her district, which everyone has to do. The commuting and the cost before she got her first paycheck, finding clothes to wear that were presentable. So I do wonder if some of these people have more personal funds that they can invest than others. I'm sure there's a lot going on here, because I agree with you. Looking at these numbers based purely off of their fame and some conjecture about the relationship between fame and how targeted you are doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, Liz Cheney is kind of up high on the list at $59,000, which kind of makes sense.
I hope Tim Burchett is spending more on security now that he's on this list, but it's not that. It's down at $37,000, but this was back in 2021. Now that he's really after the UAP disclosures.
Yeah. Well, LOL. And it does look like election year, like whether or not you're in election year makes a big difference too. So we'll follow up on that as that story evolves.
More Rising right after this. No, in fact, that does it for us for today. There's not more Rising after this. I mean, there is, because you could go look at any of our other videos, and there could always be more Rising. And I hope you go through all our video backlogs. You can. There was a radars tab where you go just watch all our radars. We haven't updated that in a while, but maybe we'll get on that. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any of our content, and we will be back with fresh content tomorrow.
Bye-bye.